Alright guys, so the last few days we've been focusing on domain and range. So today I'm just going to cover, or this video I'm just going to cover the most important concepts. I'm going to show you a few tricks for doing it. But pretty much the definition of domain is a set of all possible inputs, or it's all the x's. We're concerned with the x's, and the range is the set of all possible outputs, okay? So when you put something in, for example, I'll just go ahead and write on the back of it, it's not a big deal. So, let's say we have f of x equals x squared. When I put something into this, I'm going to have an output, right? So here's what I put in. Say I put 0 in, what comes out is 0 squared. If I put 2 in, what comes out is 2 squared, or 4. Alright, so in this case, my sum of my domain is 0 and 2, and the outputs, or my ranges, are 0 and 4. So pretty much, domain and range, it's a fancy way of saying my x's and my y's. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go through a few of these problems with you guys, and I picked out 4 problems that are hopefully going to help you better understand this, okay? So, this one's going to be problem B. Alright, so when talking about my domain, I'm always going to go from least to greatest when I write this, okay? I start by writing it's the set of all x's such that. That's what that reads. So this says the set, that's all x's such that, because domain is x's, okay? Such that. And then as I move this card, I have this card here just to kind of give you an example. As I move it from the left to the right, I get to the furthest left point, and that's my furthest left x. That's the furthest left point of my domain. It's -4. Such that -4 is less than or equal to, notice that's a filled in dot, so it's less than or equal to. And then my biggest point, as I keep moving along, furthest right point of my graph is right there. It's at 1. So x less than or equal to 1. So notice again, my furthest left point was -4, my furthest right point was 1. Furthest left point, -4, I moved it, furthest right point was at 1. They're also both filled in dots, so I have both the equals to's on the bottom. So as long as you're moving from the left to the right, all these signs are always going to be facing in the same direction, okay? As long as you're going from least to greatest, all the signs are going to be facing in the same direction. If you can't remember that, another way that makes more sense is that -4 is always going to be less than 1, so you know that your signs are facing toward that 1. Okay? Alright, so let's go ahead and look at our range now. That was the x value, so if I'm doing the range, I'm going to start at the bottom. Always start at the bottom, move your way up. Again, I'm going least to greatest except for the y values. So the range, it's a set of all y's such that, and here we go. Moving up, where's my lowest point? There's my lowest point. It's at +1. 1, and now there's not an open dot here, so that means it's going to be less than or equal to y, which is going to be, well, keep going up. Here's my highest point right here. My highest point's over here. So less than or equal to 5. And we're done. So for my interval notation, what I want to write is I want to write this. X, so domain is, and then it looks like I have equal to or less than, so that's going to be a bracket, -4, comma, 1. Anytime it's a bracket, that means it's a closed dot, or the same thing, it means it's less than or equal to. It's got that equal to. If it's going to be a parenthesis, that means it's going to be infinity, or it's going to be an open dot, which means it's never going to actually be touched. Okay? So right here, that closed dot is being touched. If there's an open dot, you don't actually touch open dots. Okay? So here's y is for the range. Now I go from 1, which is a bracket. Notice, closed, less than or equal to, bracket, 1, comma, and then it's going to max out at 5. Still bracket. Alright, so that's how you do that. There's one graph. Let's do this one. So it's graph D. So my domain, going from left to right, I have the set of all x's such that, going from left to right, here's my first point right here. It's at -4. Now it's an open dot, so that's going to change some stuff up. Because it's an open dot, it's going to be strictly less than x, and then I keep moving until I reach an endpoint. There's where it stops. That's going to be at +4. And it's a closed dot. So I have less than or equal to. So there's that one. Let's see if we can do our y. Set of y's such that, so domain starting at the bottom, move up, 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 and there's where I reach the bottom of the graph. It's at -2. Less than or equal to, right, because there's no closed dot here. So less than or equal to y, which is less than or equal to, as I go up I can see there's the top of my graph, 2. Close it off. Alright, so x is, I'm going to write it in here, going from, oh, look at this. So you see how that's strictly less than? It doesn't have the equal to sign on there? That means it's going to be a parenthesis. -4. And it's going to go all the way to, now here's a less than or equal to 4. So that means it's going to be a bracket. Y is, now these are both less than or equal to, so I knew it's going to be 2 brackets. -2 over to +2. Just like that. Alright, let's go ahead and do E. Now notice that both these ones that we did here, B and D, those were single lines. Here's one big line and here's another big line. Notice I have one big inequality, another big inequality. They're just one inequality though, right? So here's 2 lines. I'm going to be making 2 inequalities now because I have 2 lines. So starting with my domain, I have, it's a set of all x's such that, and I'm going to try to write a little bit smaller and scrunched in. Starting on the left side, I get to, looks like 2, 4, 6, so at -6. And that's a closed dot, so -6 x. And then I move along until I reach my next dot right there, or my next space right there. -2. Less than or equal to -2. And then you write or. There's another spot right here. See that space? There's a space in between this dot and that dot. That's pretty much where you're going to write that or. Or, here's x equals 0. So x is greater than 0. Oops, sorry. X is greater than 0. And then it goes up, but it keeps going to the right. It's never going to stop going to the right. That arrow is going to keep going to the right. So it's less than, and anytime you attach to an infinity like that, it's a strictly less than. You can never actually equal infinity, so you never have the equal sign on the bottom. So let's do the y. Y such that, so now go from bottom to top. Go up, there's my first y. It's going to be at 0, less than or equal to y, which is less than or equal to 2. Or, keep going up, there's 4. So y's at 4 now, this time, right there. 4 less than or equal to y, which is strictly less than, and then this is going up infinity. To infinity. So my interval is really small. Now this is, should say x's and y's, but I'm going to just skip that because I got to write really small in here. So the first one, they're both less than or equal to, less than or equal to, less than or equal to, and there's a strictly less than, so that's going to be a parenthesis. So less than or equal to, -6, comma, -2. And then there's a u because I have a separate inequality that I'm about to put in here. So where that or is going to be a u over here. Okay, and that u stands for union. And then I've got a bracket, 0, and then infinity. And like I said, when there's an infinity, it's a parenthesis. And then for my y is, I've got, looks like less than or equal to, less than or equal to, less than or equal to, or strictly less than again. So bracket u, and then I have 4 to infinity. 4 to infinity. Like that. Now I got one more. This one looks pretty easy. Sure, let's do it real quick. Let's see if we can do it without the card, okay? So if I was coming from the left, left, my domain is going to be x such that the farthest left is -1. Oh, I put less than or equal to. I made a mistake. That's an open dot. It's supposed to be strictly less than x, which is going to be less than or equal to, because it's an open dot, the furthest right point is going to be 1. There's that. The next one, I'm going to do my range, y, such that, and coming from the bottom, first point I reach is -1. Again, it's an open dot, so strictly less than y, and then, which is less than that closed dot, less than or equal to, what is that, 2, 4, 5. Alright, this is graph C. So if I'm going to write it as an interval, it's easy. So x is, that is a strictly less than, so it's going to be parenthesis -1, then it's a bracket 1. Y is going to be parenthesis -1 to bracket 5. And that's it. Hopefully you understand it. If you don't, if you have questions, make sure you're just coming into my tutoring times. Again, tutoring times are going to be Tuesday and Thursday from 4:05 to 5 o'clock. That's 5 p.m. And then Wednesday, Friday, it's going to be going from 7:45 to 8:30 a.m. That's before school. So Tuesday and Thursday after school, Wednesday and Friday before school, and if you need to come in during 6 lunch, just let me know and we'll see what we can do. Alright, thanks guys for watching, and I will see you in class.